And the title of it is Making the Choice, Religion versus or spiritual truth. Religion versus spiritual truth. And well, let me just start. Let me just read this. What is the difference between religion and spiritual truth? Religion is about conquering and controlling an individual through teaching them what to think rather than how to think. Religion does this by instructing, this is what we believe, otherwise known as doctrines or dogma. So if you're a Catholic, you believe Catholic dogmas and doctrines. If you're a Baptist, you believe Baptist doctrines, and so forth. Generally, America describes ourselves and describe our United States as a Christian nation, when in fact our country was formed to be a godly nation, or in other words, under or in God we trust. If anyone is bold enough or brave enough to open enough to do the research, he or she will find that many of the beliefs we have been taught from the Christian forefathers could be anything but the truth. Now that's kind of a big sealer right there, and I say things like that, and it gets a lot of people upset. They say, oh, he's against Christianity. I'm against what Christianity has become, because it has become a very critical and judgmental religious sect. And I do not think that anybody reading, if you want to read the Bible as the Word of God, I do not think you can read it and see that. Okay? We have been taught that what our local pastors or visiting missionaries or the TV preacher tells us is the truth, when in fact it could be a fabrication which has been propagated for hundreds of years. What is the truth? This is a question Pontius Pilate asked Jesus in John 18:38. It's also the question that we should ask ourselves on a constant or at least consistent basis. The word truth defined in the dictionary is conformity to fact or reality, correct opinion, honesty, straight, right, something fixed or established. So truth, according to the dictionary, can be or could be your opinion or my opinion. I want to use this term to talk about the truth, which is spiritual truth. What is spiritual truth? Where is it? How can it be found? According to the ancient teaching, spiritual truth is known as perennial philosophy, also known as nature wisdom. This wisdom is found in nature all around us continually. This wisdom is the transforming power that all humanity innately longs and seeks for. Spiritual truth enables all persons to realize and assess the true sense of their own being. Religion does not offer this, even though it claims to offer the truth. There is a much brighter picture than politics or religion has painted and continues to paint for us to be found in the genuine spiritual truth. Spiritual truth is about teaching people how to think for themselves, thereby instructing you how to develop your own innate abilities and capacities for understanding true wisdom. Learning how to think will aid and support your personal growth and development. Learning how to think for yourself will also aid in your personal healing, physically and especially psychologically, as you find yourself taking more responsibility for you and all that touches your world. One of the first steps that we must take on the path of spiritual truth is that of becoming open. Open to a new and a different way of thinking about our personal or our core belief. To be open is to also learn to trust that this path will lead and expose us to broader and deeper understandings of wisdom and spiritual truth. Choosing to become open also tends to unshackle our mind from dogma and doctrine, which hold our attention and discourage us from peeking outside their boundaries. Openness equals liberty to trust the voice of spiritual truth each of us are born with. Perennial wisdom designed to teach us as we live and we learn by paying attention. Proverbs 4:7 says, "True wisdom is the principal thing. Above all things seek for it and become wise. with all of thy getting, get understanding. Okay, I wrote that about a month or two ago, and then I mailed it out with the monthly CD as just a letter to prod people to think outside the box. And it's difficult most of the time for us to think outside the box, and that's the thing I would like to encourage everybody to do. This is a little book written by Alvin Boyd Kuhn somewhere around 56, 58, quite a few years back. Alvin Boyd Kuhn has been dead for quite a number of years, 40 or 50 years. I think he died in 60 something, 67 maybe. Let me read something that he wrote back in the 50s. And Alvin Boyd Kuhn was a linguistic. He taught school for a number of years, and then he became his own publisher and speaker. He spoke all over the world, different places. So this is something that he wrote as an essay that became a little bitty book. It's a small book. He has quite a number of huge books. Let me just read this. So the books of the Bible were never written at all in the modern understanding of literary authorship. They were not the original lubricant creation of an individual mind producing a written document that had not been in existence before such authorship. See, you're going to have to kind of pause and think what he just said. What he's saying is that this book that we call the Bible was not the original literary writing of somebody that sat down and God says, now say it this way, and this way. This book was taken from stories, allegories, or dramas that had previously existed and can be proven in all types. For instance, the allegories that Jesus used to speak, one of the popular allegories that Jesus used to speak about was not an original story that Jesus was telling. It was an allegory that was brought over from Egyptian mythology into Hebrew mythology into Greek mythology. It was and that's the story of Lazarus. And so the story of Lazarus is the same story out of Egyptian mythology as Osiris. And you can actually hear in Lazarus, you can hear Osiris. All you do with the story of Lazarus is to dress it in Hebrew by putting a lemid, that's the Hebrew L sound, in front of the word Osiris. Then you have Lazarus. So that's just one example. The story of Moses, all of the stories that are in this book, and that's what they are, they're phenomenal stories, are stories that had been told. And that's what he's saying right here. They were in large part the final deposit on paper of the sets of ritualistic formulas, dramatic scenarios, allegorical depictions, all representing the aspects of cosmic reality and spiritual truth. They were often just the transcripts of the lines to be recited by the actors in the great mystery plays of the ancient religions. Prominent among the material were the choral odes, the Gnostic poetry or rhymes to be chanted in accompaniment to the symbolic religious dances that imitated the rhythms of the universe. Now that really resonates deeply inside me. It may not to a lot of people, but when I read that, that just goes off all in me because I'm in love with the astrological and astronomy stories and types and shadows, which everything is based in that simply because you and I live and move and have our being simply because of the movement of the moon, the stars, the sun, and all the planetary systems that give life to this earth. Without that, the earth has no life, therefore you don't exist. Now that's a difficult thing, and if I were to say, you would say, well, no, Brother Lynn, it's God that did all that. Well, what I just said is God. When I talk about the astrological movement of the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, the entire universe, the word universe can be another word for our term God. Our problem is religious has defined a word for us and we can't think past that word. And so what I would like for us to do is open our mind. That's difficult because you come In here, you come with the preset of paradigms, and those paradigms are reinstilled or either reformed through your birthing and through your upbringing. And many times we don't recognize that. So it's hard to think outside your box, right?
Yes.
And a box is something that we put ourselves in. God doesn't put us in a box. Doctrines and dogmas, religions put you in a box. So if you come down here and we say, well, we are a charismatic church, then we will put you in the charismatic church box by saying, here's what we believe as charismatic or charismanians. But if we begin to understand spiritual truth is not in a box, it's as free as the air you breathe. And by the way, the air you breathe, everybody else breathes. So it's not prejudiced, and it's not just for you and your group. Thank God for that, amen? We would starve some people of air. Because religion teaches us this kind of division. It teaches us how to be prejudiced. It teaches us how to be my for and no more. and we get this religious indoctrination from well-meaning people that we respect and we admire. I remember when I first started this journey years ago, I wasn't a whole lot older than Austin when I first began my steps in this direction. One of the men that I revered more than everybody, I began to realize that I couldn't embrace hardly anything he taught and believed. That didn't take away my reverence for him. It didn't take away my respect for him. It didn't take away my awe for him. I maintained all those things. I just found I couldn't believe what he believed. You understand that? And that's not a put down to him. Of course, I'm talking about Dake. Finest Jennings Dake. Dake was my teacher. He had the whole Bible memorized. That's the Dake Bible. He was a mentor to me and still is. But I learned to take his notes and look the opposite direction. And that's what helped me begin to open my eyes. I would sit in his classes, and he taught seminary classes. I would sit in his classes. I would ask so many questions, he would finally ask me to shut up. Just quit asking so many questions. Because what they were trying to get me to believe didn't make sense. And so I would say, how can you take the Bible and take it in one place to mean one thing, take it in another place, it means totally something different? I said, that's confusing. I said, I think that's why everybody's so confused in Christianity. And they are. Gosh, that's a tough start off, isn't it? I'm sorry. But just think. Hard to think. It's hard to open our minds. So let me go back and just recap what I just read. Prominent among the material, talking about the scripture, this book right here, the Bible, prominent among the material were the choral odes, the Gnostic poetry, and the rhymes to be chanted and accompanied to the symbolic religious dances that imitated the rhythms of the universe. Whew, glory to God. Such has become the set of Orthodox Christian thinking on such matters that when the statement is made that scriptural material is not history in the modern sense, but is spiritual allegory, drama of cosmic verities, the reaction is inevitably one of mental letdown in evaluation of the importance of the Holy Word. This is a wrong attitude and must be corrected before another word can be put down. That's what he's saying. Whether the reader is prepared to give credit to the truth of the statement or not, it must be said categorically that not only does the anticipation of the Bible contents as allegory instead of history not diminish the value, but it is the only device that will open the door to any appreciation of its true value. In short, it is to be said that the Bible becomes infinitely more significant when taken as allegory than when read as obstential history. Unquestionably, some history was interpolluted at a later time so that it is hard to place to determine whether allegory stops or history begins. And I will agree with that. And by that I just simply mean, I'll give you a very good illustration. Ararat. Ararat is not an English word. Ararat is a Hebrew word that was given an English word to dress it. So if I said Ararat, immediately most people, if they've ever done any Bible study or any at all, thought of Mount Ararat, didn't you? Yeah. And when you thought of Mount Ararat, what did you think of? You thought of the story of Noah and the flood. And you have, I don't even care if you've ever been to church. You've heard the story of Noah and the flood. And you never knew that it was an allegory. It was not a literal history. There was not a literal Noah built a great big boat and put a bunch of things, people and animals in it and then floated in the storms. That is not true. But it is a phenomenal story that when you begin to see the truth in that story, it becomes more important than a historical event that happened, whatever, 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. But when you see the allegory in it, and the Hebrew word Ararat, comes from the Hebrew word, if it's pronounced in Hebrew, Ar, Tov. That's how it's spelled. Ar is Ar or Or. Ar or Or is the word in Hebrew for light. It's in Genesis 1, 5, and 6. It's the Hebrew word for light. And the word Tov is the last glyph of the Hebrew alphabet, which is number 400. And it deals with timelessness in time. And so if you break the Hebrew word Ar, Tov down, or pronounce, we give it a pronunciation by adding vowel points and call it Ararat. If you break it down, what it means is, it means the point that you are at in time where the life that you're living is ready to take a fresh start into a new life that you're living. And so what does it mean? It means it's this point in time where you open your mind and you begin to think. So it wasn't talking about a peak where a big boat landed. And that's hard. That's a real hard pill to swallow. I realize that, and I do understand it. And I'm sorry for us to have been deceived by that fabulous story. If we'd been told the truth, I tell this story. I said, if you read that story in Genesis 6 and Genesis 7 and 8, if you read the story of Noah, if you'll just go and read it, you'll read there also where they floated that big boat in 22 feet of water. And yet they tell you that the water runs so deep. Well, Mount Ararat's 29,000 feet tall. Hello. That's just right there in the story if anybody read the Bible. They just don't pay attention. They won't read it. And if they did, they would. Okay, let me read on. Let me read some more here. What he said. He said, for the Bibles were written in a language the very existence of which has hardly been known since the days of its ancient usage, the language of symbols. Glyphs and characters of this ancient language have been undeciphered for 20 centuries. Only recently have first steps been taken toward its recovery and restoration. Well, I would like to think, or at least I want to think about myself as one of those who would help a forerunner, a pioneer, so to speak. And you know, sometimes pioneers are rough and gruff, and that sometimes I come across that way. I don't mean to be, because I'm not that way. But pioneers go and make a way, and sometimes they're alone, and sometimes they aren't a lot of people around them because they're plowing in some places that people never been. And that's kind of how my life has been. I'm plowing in places that we haven't plowed in 2,000 years. And so I realize the things I say many times are very foreign to the ear of, but they're not according to material. This is material. This book was written in 1832. Godfrey Higgins, I want to read something out of this book. After giving the subject of all consideration in my power and diligent examination of ancient documents for many years, I have become quite convinced that almost all of the ancient histories were written for the sole purpose of recording a mythos, which it was desired to transmit to posterity, but yet to conceal it from all but the initiates. What that's saying is, I'm going to unveil this true story to you because you've come in the house. That's what Jesus said. He said out in the field, all he did was just talk about farmers sowing seed. And everybody thought, yeah, that's just wonderful. Those farmers get to plant corn. Nobody didn't realize the depth of that story. And then some people said, well, what do you mean by that? And he said, if you want to know what I mean, come in the house. And to those that came in the house, Jesus began to unveil the true stories behind the story. And that's basically what we do in here. And of course, we send it out, and people hear it and say, well, that guy's crazy. But you know, conceal it from all but the initiated. The traditions of the countries were made subservient to this purpose without any suspicion of fraud, and we only give them the appearance of fraud when we confound them with history. This is the case with all of the early histories. They were all anciently composed, or if written, they were written in verse for the sake of correct retention by memory, and set to music for the same reason. They were all of the same nature as the Iliad and the Aeneid. The most ancient of ancients had nothing of the nature or of our real history. Real history was not the object of their writing any more than Virgil's or Milton's. Now, some of the last people who really understood that was Philo, Origen, and you can read Philo's writings. Philo actually was what was called contemporary to Jesus, and he was truly a Hebrew scholar. And he was a literal person who literally lived, but there's never one mention from Philo of a person named Jesus who was supposedly living contemporary to Philo. And yet Philo wrote on these very principles. If you read his works, and his works are available to read, but if you read his works, you will begin to realize they're just really based in ancient Hebrew from allegorical perspective or from mythological perspective. So words, names, cities, places in the Bible, and this is what he's talking about. Many times they had to dress it with historical people. So if there never was a person by the name of Abraham that lived, sometimes someone would name a person Abraham because of the story, and then that person would get to be associated with the story. Do you understand what I mean when I say that? Words, names, cities, places in the Bible were not written as literal places in history, but were types, shadows, allegories, symbols, myths, stories, dramas, plays, about. And here's what all of these stories are about. They are about the divine, and I use that word divine because of respect to that word. Usually if we use the word, we have respect to that which is divine, i.e. God. And that word, sometimes that's hard to use that word because of the way that people think, the paradigm they start to think by when you say God. And all of a sudden they start to think. When I say divine, all of a sudden they start to think. If I say universe, they start to think so. If I say source, power, the list goes on. All of these terms that we use to try to describe something that we really don't know how to describe it. Why? Because it is the essence of everything that is. There is nothing. As a matter of fact, it says that God is all and is in all. So there's nothing that is not God. So then God is not an old gray-headed man sitting out somewhere in the universe in a planet we call heaven.
Golden planet.
I'm sorry?
It's a golden planet.
The golden planet. Well, hallelujah. Okay. Let me go over something with you. If you will, if you have a Bible, if you'd like to look with me in your Bible, And sometimes in looking at it, it becomes, I did a teaching here a number of months back, and I titled that teaching, Your Car, Your Truck, and Your Tractor. And when I used that teaching, I talked about your car, your truck, and your tractor. And I said, what is your car? And you would think, well, my car is a vehicle that I ride in. Isn't that correct? It's a vehicle that I go from place to place in. Well, I mean, you know, trucks used to be, years and years ago, trucks were work tools. They were equipment designed for work. Now then, trucks are about as luxurious, if not more luxurious, than cars. So Jamie come to church in her truck.
My truck.
Y'all come to church in your car. And so, tractor is also something you can ride in now. Tractors now, they got some pretty sophisticated tractors with power steering, air conditioning, completely encaged, to keep you out of the dust. And they're pretty fancy, pretty nice. But nevertheless, there is that understanding. A car is not a truck is not a tractor. But they are three vehicles, right? Well, I take that same identical word in Hebrew, and I use the word Adam, which is a Hebrew word. I use the word Esh, which is a Hebrew word. And I use the word Ash, which is also a Hebrew word. And in every case, those three different Hebrew words are translated in your Bible for the one word, man. But if I said man when I'm using Adam, and I said man when I'm using Ish, and I said man when I'm using Asha, did I mean the same thing in Hebrew? No. Just like if I said your car, your truck, your tractor. So I wouldn't tell you at all to go to Florida on vacation in your tractor. Number one, it'd take you a long time to get there, and they probably wouldn't let you drive it on the interstate because it won't go fast enough. Therefore, by that simple analogy, you have to come back and understand that the word Adam, the word Esh, and the word Anash is not the same. If they were the same, but yet they translated it man. And so when you read in those passages and you read man, you're thinking the same thing you read when they said it's your car. It's the vehicle that God rides in. And that's truly what it is. But it also has different functions. So, I said that to say this. The word Adam. I'm going to put this on the board for you in Hebrew, and I want you to see it. Aleph. And we're going to talk some about this Dalit and Mem. Okay, it goes from right to left, it goes backwards in Hebrew. Aleph, Dalit, Mem. This is number 1, this is number 4, and this is number 600. Okay? Counting in Hebrew. Number 1, number 4, and number 600. Aleph, Dalit, Mem, and that word is called A-D-A-M. Adam. So if I read in Genesis chapter 1, well, let's see, the first place I find that word is Genesis chapter 2. The first place I find this word Adam is in Genesis chapter 2, verse 19. This is the first place it's found. Genesis chapter 2, verse 19. The English word Adam, the first place it's found, Genesis 2, 19 says, and out of the ground the Lord God made every beast of the field, every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam. That's the first place you find this word Adam. However, if I look in Genesis 1:26, this is 2:19. If I look in Genesis 1:26, I see this word. But here's how it's spelled. Well, is there a difference? No. Do you think of the same thing when you think of these two different words? You probably do. If you come here, you don't. But you probably, when you read this word man in Genesis 1:26, you thought of the human race or the human species, male, female, etc., etc. That's probably what you thought, I guess. But then when you see this word, you think of some guy that Bible stories have told you that lived 6,000 or so years ago, who run around in some beautiful garden naked, looking for this beautiful woman that covered her naked body with her hair. That's probably who you think of when you... But they're the same. Do you see what I'm saying? They're exactly the same. And then I come up with another word, and this word, you'll find this word actually in Genesis 25:30. Actually, it's not, it can be spelled that way, but here's what they do with this word, because you can do it. And probably when you hear this word, Edom, if you have been taught in church, for the most part, you would think of possibly Esau or Edom. And so if you thought of Esau or Edom, what would you think? Usually you'd think, well, he was earthly, he was sold, what did he sell his birthright, etc. Actually, you can chase this word on down. Edomites. Have you ever heard of the Edomites? Many times when you look at the Edomites, you would associate them with demons. Get rid of the Edomites. Kill them all. Well, guess what? Same exact Hebrew word. No difference. Not any difference at all. And so, when we go through the Bible and we read these different names, we are told these names referring to different stories or different dramas, but yet they're using exactly the same Hebrew name. And here is a great dilemma that we have, just exactly like Alvin Boyd Kuhn said, just exactly like I read from Godfrey Higgins. We have this dilemma that we do not understand that the names or the characters or the places are really mythologies or allegories, and we do not understand how to read the symbols. These are all symbols. This is the Hebrew glyphs that are symbolic, and if we understand these symbols, or when we begin to understand these symbols, we can break that name down and it becomes something that's powerful. For instance, I will take this one, the Aleph. Okay? I'm just going to take that, and I don't have enough room on this little board. I'd like to have, this is considered number 1. This glyph is considered number 1. Okay? And so when you call it number 1, then you're referring to God, you're referring to source. So it also is the symbol for silence. And many of the ancient teachings would do this. They say to really get in touch with God, you have to get into silence. Jesus taught that very thing. Jesus didn't, he taught against what we do in church when we get up in the pulpit, or we have people stand up and say, y'all bow your heads, our Father, which art in heaven, da-da-da-da-da. Jesus taught against that. Jesus said, when you want to pray and you want to get in touch with God, go in your closet, and in silence in your closet, commune with the essence, the Father, the Holy One. In silence. Well, have you ever practiced prayer that way? Most people never have. What do you mean? Just go and become quiet. Have you ever tried to shut the voice down in your head? Most of the time, the voice, the only voice that you hear in your head, most of the time, is just your ego. That's telling you, I don't like him, I don't like her, I don't like that, I don't like this, that SOB, why did he do that, why did you blah, blah, blah. That's the voice in your head. You hear that quite often, don't you? It talks to you all of the time. As a matter of fact, you will find it's probably the most difficult thing in your life to tell that voice to shut up and just listen to nothing. Well, I don't want to listen to nothing. Well, when you're listening to nothing, you're really listening to this right here. You're listening to God. The Aleph, number 1. So it's the number 1 is the signal or the thing for silence, which actually means no thing or nothing, which is the Ensof. Everything that is comes from this. I don't care what it is. It is the divine spark. This glyph right here refers, the aleph refers to the divine spark. It refers to light. And even now, today, in quantum physics, they are recognizing, medical science is beginning to know that you are truly light beings. Everything about you and every organ in your physical body has within it the energy of light, the fire, the divine spark of fire, the divine essence of what God is, because God is light. That's what it tells you in Scripture. God is a consuming fire. That's what it tells you in Scripture. Have we ever paid attention to that? God is not a man. That's what it tells you in Scripture. But no, what have we allowed? We've allowed religion for nearly 2,000 years to paint us a God that's anthropomorphic. I remember Brother Dake used to teach me all the time that he talked to these scriptures. He said, well, God has 2 arms and 2 legs. I said, yeah. I said, he says that. And also he says in the book of his Exodus that he's an eagle. So now he's got wings and he flutters and he's got a beak on his mouth. Tom Cleary, Brother Lynn, you asked too many questions. But I mean, you can't go into Scripture and because God is described as a lion, that doesn't mean God is a lion. We have tried to make God anthropomorphic, and God is not anthropomorphic. God is not a man. That's what it tells you, Exodus 21. So, aleph, now listen to this aleph and the way it's designed, it also, if you can hear this, it's the first of the 3 Hebrew mother letters. They have 3 Hebrew mother letters, the aleph, the mem, and the shin. And it's also, the aleph means the ox head. Most people would call it the ox head. That's what they would describe it. When people look at it and say, well, they do it like this. They said, well, yeah, that kind of put a leg on the front, maybe put a horns on it, and a nose, a mouth, and then put a tail on it. Yeah, I guess it could be an ox. You see what I'm trying to say? That's what people do. So, as the symbol of the glyph, the ox, it doesn't even mean that at all. Actually, what it means, it's the astrological symbol of Taurus, the bull. And the reason they use Taurus as the bull is because Taurus, as the bull, which is April, it's the sign of reproduction or life, because that's when spring begins. That's the time that the Hebrew children were told to take a calf or take a lamb and slit the blood and pass over, put the blood on the doorpost, and this death will pass over you. Why? The death of winter is gone. The life of summer is here. That's what that symbol is all about. That's what that story is all about. So he says it's the astrological sign of Taurus, and it also means life or birthing. Now when you hear this, because when you look at this, if you were to get you a medical dictionary and you look at this, it is the shape of the uterus. And the horns on the bull are the fallopian tubes. So all you have to do is get a medical dictionary, look at it, why? Oh my God, I'm staring a bull right in the face. That's the aleph. Why? Because it's a symbol of reproduction. And you have to then you come to this glyph, the dalet. This is a powerful glyph. This is number 4. And the dalet, we find it in this glyph right here, Yod Hey Vav Hey. I've talked about that. I was promising to talk about it a whole lot today, which I intended to, but I may not get too much to it, because if you look at it, it's made up of 4 characters. This is known as Jehovah, which we have given Jehovah a character's name. Again, whether the character is real or true or not, that's not the issue. It's what does it mean? And of course, the character we've given Jehovah is Jesus. Isn't that correct? Or if you go into the Old Testament, we've given it the character of Joshua, or Jehovah the Lord. So we give it the character of God. And that's fine, because any of those characters, if we can understand what's behind the character in the play, you hear it? The character in the play is representing something. The dance that's being danced is representing something. The sign on 75 over here in Dalton that says it's 500 miles to Daytona is representing something. Please don't stop over at the sign and get your blanket out and think you're in Daytona, because you're not at the beach. You're still in North Georgia. The sign is just a pointer. If the person in the play is a sign pointing to something. I know I hope that's simple, but I hope that's profound enough to make you think. So when I'm looking at these glyphs are signs. What are they pointing to? They are pointing to the essence of the power of God that's in me. So when I see this dalit, and I realize the dalit is the number 4, it's the first of the 7 doubles. In Hebrew, you have 3 mothers. 3 mothers represent. A miniature stick man. I divide my stick man into 3 characteristic parts. Number 1 is spirit. Number 2 is soul. And number 3 is body. And so the 3 Hebrew mother letters represents these 3 aspects of your being. Okay? Because every one of you have 3 aspects of your being, whether you agree with it or disagree with it or what. That's spirit, soul, and body. Spirit is the very life force that helps you to live. You breathe by it. Soul, you can call it your heart, you can call it your ego, you can call it many different things that it is. It is a design of the divine Spirit of God to be in this dimension. It's a connection, okay? It's a universal link. It's that which connects you to the all. It's called your soul. Many people use soul and spirit synonymously. That's okay. People do. That's not really what they're meant to be. Spirit and soul aren't the same, but appear to be the same. And of course your body, your physical body. That's the house that all of this essence live in.
You can call it the door, the gate.
Exactly, and I'm going to do that in just a minute with this dalit, because the dalit is the door. That's exactly what it's used as a symbol, and that's what it's talked about. It's a symbol. And it also is the first of the 7 doubles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the Hebrew yom, Y-O-W-M. That's translated 7. 7 endocrine glands. You have 7 endocrine glands that form the baby in the womb, okay? This is the Hebrew word yom, and actually it means the fullness of life. It's what it means to live life to its fullest, but it's translated in Genesis 1 as this word right here, day. So it wasn't talking about 7 literal days, it's talking about the 7 facets of the physical body that are designed to live life. So in essence, this refers to you, all of you, okay? And so the dalit is the first of the 7 doubles. In Hebrew, you have 3 mothers, you have 7 doubles, and you have 12 elementals. The 12 elementals have to do with the 12 astrological signs, from which the 7 are created. In other words, every one of you have a birth date. I don't care who you are. Mine too, 1948. Everybody has a birthday. Well, what is that? That's when you incarnated in this dimension. Where did you come from? You come from the energy, the essence of whatever. Okay? You think, well, no, I was the seed of my father and the egg of my mother. The seed of your father looked like this. The seed of your father, put it under a microscope, looks like that. The seed of your mother, put it under a microscope, looks like that. When you join them together, looks like that, and here's what you call it. Right? And that's who you are. And you know what? That and that is a spark of light. the seed of your father, the egg of your mama, when they were combined, voila, it was light. Those are called doubles. There's a, what do they call the DNA? A double-strand helix. So the 7 doubles in Hebrew, what were they referring to? They were referring to this. You see, everything I'm saying can be medically, scientifically validated. It's amazing to me that 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago, they knew this. Whether they had a microscope or whatever they looked at the physical body through and with, how could they possibly know about the fallopian tubes? How could they possibly know about something as small as a DNA strand? They did, though. They knew it. They wrote about it in this marvelous book we call the Bible. It's a book about the medical, scientific development of a human body, which is God's temple, God's tabernacle. So it's the first of the 7 doubles. By simply meaning doubles, it's where the single, the essence, the unified one God comes into duality. Not to be separate. The double helix is not separate, even though it's called double. And what it does, it's where it comes into the opposites of knowledge versus ignorance. Knowledge versus ignorance. Most of us are ignorant. Why? It's not necessarily a choice that we made. We didn't make a choice to say, well, I'm just going to be ignorant. But we did. We didn't, but we did. Because all of the things that are truth, can be found and can be validated. Is it work? Yes, it's a lot of work. It's difficult? Yes. It requires discipline? Yes. Well, I'd rather be ignorant. Hell, I'm just going to roll through here and enjoy life. Well, you go right ahead. The problem of that is just this. Life will abuse you. Life will use you. Life will run over you in all kinds of ways. It does it through without me mentioning all of them. You already know them. But yet it's fun, isn't it? Hallelujah. Absolutely. I tell people that you have the freedom to be anything that you want to be. But if you cannot control 1 beer that becomes 6 beers, that becomes 10 beers, you can become an alcoholic by your own freedom. And that is ignorant. I remember I used to have people say, well, all Lynn does is teaches everybody how to be free, go do whatever they want to. No, they're going to do whatever they want to, whether I tell them it's okay or not. Why? Because they're free. I'm saying use wisdom. Don't be ignorant. Ignorant is the other side of knowledge. It's the double strand of the DNA. It's just exactly like dark is the other side of light. You can stay in darkness your whole life. You don't have to. I'm just saying there is a higher life to live, and we are called to live that higher life. And I don't know about you, I've been on a quest to live it. I'm searching for it. I want it. I know that that is the only place where I really truly find happiness. I can look for it in everything else, but that's where I really find it. So I find it in the dalit. The dalit has to do with the door. It has to do with the knowledge versus ignorance. It has to do with light versus darkness. It also, as the door, and let me show you about a door. A door can be one of 2 ways. It can be just exactly like this door is right here. And what would you say this door is? It's what? Shut. Closed. It can be open. Is the door of your heart open enough to think outside your box? And that's where we've got to come to. We've got to come to a place where we think, not get offended, not get mad at me. I don't mean for you to get mad at me. I just simply mean think, because a door is designed to open. It hangs on hinges. If you open the door and think, you begin to see some things, okay? That's all I'm suggesting. That's what this glyph means. These are signs. This sign is the sign of a door. Yes, what is the door for? It can be shut or it can be open. You got God shut out, or you think you got God shut in? Well, if you shut God in, I mean, didn't they have a song like that? Didn't they have one day? Shut in with God.
I've never heard that.
I mean, I can think somebody's honest. God bring him in and shut the door and he won't get out. Bull! You can't shut God in. But you can shut God out. Just by ignorance. That's all. It's, you know, it's not literally that God is shut out, because that's impossible. It's psychologically. If we can understand these two sides of our cerebrum, our brain, our upper brain, if we could understand these two sides, the right and the left, the Esh and the Esha, the Adam and the Eve, if we could, the good and the evil, we could understand these two sides of our brain and utilize both sides.
That's how you shut, as you say, shut God out, is you're living in the lower part, there in the soul part, which is the door. You have shut that, and it can't make you whole.
Yes, absolutely. And when actually what the scriptures are referring to when it uses the word save, S-A-V-E, from the Greek sozo, or salvation, to experience salvation from the Greek soterio, actually that's what it means, is to be whole. It doesn't mean to go forward and say, oh God, I'm so sorry, I did this, I shouldn't have done that, I stole that, and tell everything, everybody that you ever done. God knows everything you ever done or ever thought about done it. Or doing. And you think that moves God one bit? You think it moves God one bit? Religion wants you to think it moves God one bit. That's why I remember when I was a little kid, they'd go across the street to that Baptist church and they would say, we're just going to sing it one more time. And the preacher done preached you into hell and got you burning your feet, and you feel the fire, and you say, oh my God. And they say, just as I am. I said, oh God, I know I'm in a mess. We're going to sing it one more time. What are they trying to do? And they're trying to use the psychological side of your brain to get you to feel no good, to get you to feel sorry, to get you to feel guilty, to get you to feel worse and worthless, when those are all lies. I don't care what you've done or haven't done. I don't care where you've been or haven't been. You are valuable in God's eyes and to God. Period. Period. Bottom line. You're valuable. And if you can think out of the psychological side of your brain, just use it, open it up and think, you and I will begin to find phenomenal answers. Okay, goodness gracious, I'm just wasting too much time here, aren't I? This glip is number 600. And this is a phenomenal glip. Also, it's the final meal. And I want to close with this. I'm just run out of time. I want to get to that. I do. I want to get to Yod Hey Vav Hey, because this is nitrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen that has its base, and that's why you only have 3 glips here. I know there's 4 there, but this is a hay and this is a hay. And because the reason these both are hay is because 2 parts oxygen. You have, how do you get water? What do you call it? H? H to the second power, right? Oxygen?
H2O.
H2O. So that's water. Well, that's basically what this is. Because basically that's what you are. Medical science has proven today that without a doubt you're now 95 to 98% water. That's exactly why when the moon waxes and wanes, it not only affects a woman, it affects a man. It affects you, period. Why? Because these are the things carbon base is what the earth is. The earth is a carbon base, and that's why you have carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. And so this glib that's translated, for, this particular glib is translated for Jehovah, but it comes from this glib, this dalit, with the 4 different characters, Jehovah, so you get to understand Jehovah actually is a symbolic word that represents the physical body. That's what I wanted to get to try to talk about that. But let me finish up with this one right here, because this is really a phenomenal glyph, and it's called mem. And so I want to read you a verse in the Bible right here in Genesis 1:1. You all know it, you all heard of it, and this glyph is used there. And I want to close with this glyph by using it with this particular word. You all know this, and everybody can probably quote it. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The heavens. You were told that's a planet. But that word heaven is not a planet. It's the Hebrew word sheen, mem. Let me make that a little bit. Sheen, mem, yod, mem. Now in Hebrew there are two mems. This is 40, number 40. This is number 600. Well, you remember this one? Right here. It's the last glyph in the name of Adam. So is there something about the name of Adam that has the dressing of heaven? Absolutely. Adam is heaven manifest in a physical world. Heaven's not a place you go to. Heaven is who you are. And we don't even recognize that. You see, in this particular word, in Hebrew, this is the Hebrew word for heaven. Sheen mem, yod mem. You have two particular glyphs here, or two particular signs that can be put together. This deals with your physical body. Okay? When I talk about the physical body, I'm not just talking about your lower extremity. The lower extremity actually is a symbol of the whole physical body. You understand? Because you see, you have a brain here and you have a brain here. Okay? You have two brains. And we use that vulgarly, don't you? You know, I don't have to go too far off the beaten path to tell that men use their brain here instead of their brain here. We're really good about that, aren't we, men? Well, and we even have vulgar analogies that we talk about. But that's necessarily true, because you see, you spew two seeds. You spew a seed out here with your lower extremity. You spew a seed out here with your tongue constantly. And just exactly like the sperm that you spew out has the potential to make thousands, hundreds of thousands of babies. So does this one. It's constantly spewing babies. It throws seeds. This one throws seeds, and this one throws seeds. So those are analogies. This is exactly what this is referring to. You have two glyphs. I don't want to block that glyph off, because you see that glyph, this one and this one. This one is referring to your lower extremity, which the reason I use these three for your lower extremity, I'm talking about your gonads, male or female, your gonads. I'm talking about your intestinal or womb area, and I'm talking about your adrenal. Basically, if I use those three characteristics, physically speaking, I'm talking about you. And basically, that's where most people live. They live by the strength, bless God, I can do it. Or they live by their womb or their intestinal. That's where pain is at. That's where you carry pain, right there. That's where you carry pain in the physical. You don't carry it up here. You carry it right down there. That's why that many times people have such a problem with constipation. You know why you got a problem with constipation? Because you got some kind of issue psychologically. You got lodged there, and you can't go. And if you can deal with that, you can let that go, you can flush it out. See? Or you live by the gonads. Sexual, you know, she's the one. Oh God, he's got to be it, you know, etc. Those kinds of things. So this final Hebrew mem, the final mem, I want to give you this and we'll close, because it's found in this glyph of heaven. You found both these mems. This one deals with the physical sheen mem, and this one deals with the higher dimension of the Yod Mem. This one right here has cosmic or spiritual attributes. So this one represents your lower man. This one represents your spirit man, or you can say your higher man, which everybody has that. So the final mem, this is the second water glyph, 600s, cosmic spiritual achievement. It deals with fruitfulness both in the intellectual and the spiritual. Did you get that? That's what this glyph right here. This one deals with both the intellectual, the mem that you think by. See, if you can listen, many times if you can listen, open your mind, you can think. Right? Well, if I go to church, and if I was down at First Baptist this morning, I've done been gone way over too long because I'm supposed to quit at 12 o'clock because we've got to beat everybody to the restaurant, right? Got to get in a long line.
The game's on.
Yeah, the game's on. And if you, like my grandkids, and they serve, then Sunday mornings you don't want to serve. You know why? Because the God Squad comes in. You know why they don't serve the God Squad? Number one, they're very rude. I don't even want to be associated with the group. Therefore, I don't dress like them. They're very rude. They're very disrespectful, and they don't have a clue how to tip. Beats all I apologize. I don't want to be associated with that group of people. And you can ask most any professional server about the God Squad. They'll tell you about the God Squad. Because I remember when years and years ago, a lady that come here, and she was a server, she said, "Oh yeah, here comes the God Squad." You know what I'm talking about. So this glyph deals with, this number 600, it deals with spiritual and physical achievement, fruitfulness, both in the realm of the intellect and the spirit. And that's a place that I pray that we would not be ignorant. We can be, but we don't have to be.
That's right.
Paul even said this. He said, "I wish you weren't ignorant." And then I added a little parenthetical, a little parenthesis, "but you are." He wouldn't even suggest it if we weren't. Ain't nothing wrong with being ignorant. There's a lot of things I'm ignorant about. There are a lot of things I'm ignorant about. But I don't want to be. I want to keep my mind open. I want to keep my antenna out. I want to listen. So the glyph, the 600, the final mem, deals with fruitfulness in both the intellect and the spirit, part of mankind, and it's used as this particular glyph right here. You see it used both ways. This is the physical, intellectual, and this is the spiritual. See that? So the Bible, I can take the whole Bible. I can go through here and I can do all of the stories. I can take the story of Jonah and the whale. I can take the story of Job. I can take the story of Daniel. I can take the story of Abraham. I can take the story of Esau, Jacob. The list just goes on and all the way through there. I can take the story of David. Was not a literal person that lived, a historical person. He is a mythological character in a fabulous tale. And when you begin to see the stories and you begin to understand the tales, it will enliven you. Whew, I quit. I was trying to find a place just to quit. I quit right there. Okay, so apologize for just abruptly quitting, but I got to stop there. Any questions or we good? Clear?
That's good.
Clear for you? Different.
Crystal clear.
Excellent. Good. Okay. All right.
So the people that lived thousands of years ago and everything and that, they were, I mean, extremely high intellect, close to who they were in God, to be able to put that down on print that we're just getting to just teeny bit see now.
Mm-hmm.
It's
It's amazing, isn't it?
it's just, I mean, it's fun. I don't have the vocabulary. It's phenomenally.
They didn't have as much stuff back then to
Mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. It really is. And let me ask you a question. We call ourselves advanced. We call ourselves non-primitive. We may be primitive in a lot of ways, but we call ourselves advanced. And we think we're advanced scientifically. We think we're advanced intellectually. Are there people on the earth right now that live in mud huts, that live in tents, or don't even have a house and just live out in the open? In other words, I'm talking about Aborigines. Are there Aborigines that we would say aren't nearly as intellectual and smart as we are? Or could we say that there are Kalahari Desert people that live very primitive and are they alive right now today? Yes, they are. Were there that kind of people alive 6,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago? Of course there were. They've always been primitive people, i.e. cave people. That's what we want to say, because we want to look down on them and say, well, they're less than us. They're not as smart as us. But, let me say this, on the other side of that coin, there were intellectual people that knew how to build a pyramid, that knew how to build temples, that knew how to cut stones, that we don't know how today. In all of our advanced technology, we still can't figure out how in the world they built such a thing as a pyramid. How did they lift the stones? Then when you get to the idea of, you figure out how they got them lifted, how did they cut the things? How did they cut something that weighed 60 tons, so straight, so smooth, so flat, that you can put two together and it don't even need a joint?
I was watching a documentary one time and they said that the aliens had put those pyramids in.
Yeah, and they very well could have, but I have also heard the other side of that coin that says that we should think a disgrace to our godly spiritual character to think that somebody had to come here from another planet to do it for us, when we have the intellect of God ourselves. We should know how to do it. And I would like that answer myself. I'd say, why not take more credit for me as being a character of God than to put myself down and say, well, I'm just too ignorant.